All right, let's go ahead and get started. So thanks everyone for joining. My name is Brian Hotzik. I'm with NCSI. Today we have
Brian Hoskins, also with NCSI.
And today we're going to walk through some really cool technology that we really like to talk about, BrightPattern. So BrightPattern is an omni-channel communication system that you can add onto your service management system. So we're going to kind of dig into the details, talk about the theory behind it, and kind of show you how it works. But
we want to call it's not just adding onto the service management system. It can connect to all kinds of different systems and be a standalone call management system. It does way more than just extend an ITSM platform. That's what it's great at that. Right. But it does quite a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to show you kind of its focus on ITSM today, but know that there are lots of really cool use cases. You know, even I've heard they're using it for things like COVID vaccine distributions, being able to tell people when it's ready or available or things like that. So, so we're going to walk through kind of what it looks like. So please, as we do it, use that Q&A, ask some questions. We want to keep it interactive and be able to try and answer them. But we're going to kind of walk you through the life of what it looks like today. And just a couple of different examples. Your actual use case might be a little bit different from this. So we're just coming up with some examples to get you thinking about it and potentially how it's going to work.
And it's all very configurable.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Yeah, it is a very, very configurable system. You can fine tune it to do, pretty much anything you want. So keep that in mind. Okay, let's get started. What I want to do first is come over here to the whiteboard, and I want to talk about what it is. Let's talk about the theory first before we get into the details of actually how it works. So how do you work with your customers today? How do you interact with your people at the other end of an ITSM space? Well, we've got common things. We've got voice. We've been doing voice for forever, essentially. Someone picks up the phone and calls into us. Other things like email, right? Hey, I want to send an email. It opens an incident. Another thing that we've been doing for a very long time. What are other things that are starting to become more interesting? What about things like chat? That's a new addition to ITSM service management lately, to be able to chat with our customers. But if you start interacting with anything outside of ITSM, maybe you're calling in an airline, or you're calling your credit card company or something like that, you're going to start to notice that they offer a lot more options for you. They're starting to offer things like SMS, to be able to send a text message into and get service based on that. What about things like being able to talk via Facebook or Twitter or some kind of social media aspect? Now, these things aren't necessarily applicable to all ITSM situations. I don't necessarily expect a corporate employee to pick up their Facebook account to interact with us, but there are other options inside of there. So extending the different channels that we have here, we want to create something called Omnichannel. So Omnichannel says, these are all the different channels that someone can get support from us. I want to merge them all together. I don't want voice to be independent from email, that's independent from chat or SMS or Facebook or Twitter, all these different avenues to interact with us. I want them to be the same avenue and offer the same kind of support. Next, I want to run it through a couple of really cool things, and that's AI and bots. Now, you're going to hear a lot these days about AI is going to do all this fancy stuff to solve all your problems, put all your people out of business. No, that's not the case. We need to take it from a real practical approach. IT service management is very, very difficult. We're not going to solve all of your problems with a bot on the first day or even on the 356th day. It's going to take a long time to tune and refine this to get it better. We want to shave off some of the interactions. And that might be in your organization, it might be 20%, it might be 30%. It all depends on what you're doing, what your customers are asking for help, things like that. But we want to be able to peel that off with bots to be able to answer questions for users before we get to a human. We want to bring AI into the equation to help understand what they're saying so that we don't have to just, in the old way, well, let's look at their email, and if they said this exact word in the subject, then we can have some smart routing. It needs to be a lot fuzzier than that. We need to understand really what the intent of the user is and be able to route it intelligently, ask secondary questions, kind of things like that. So we're going to run it through bots and AI. We're never going to solve all the problems there. Now we need to get humans involved. So on the back end, we have, actual agents, actual human beings that are going to answer the phone or check an email or do a chat or SMS or, whatever that communication method is. We're going to run it through the bots and AI so that we can do cool things like pop up their screen, pre-populate their information, give them suggestions, things like that, so they have a lot more tools at their disposal. And that agent might have, multiple sets of systems on the back end. Each one of those agents has different skills. Maybe this agent is great at solving hardware problems, but then this agent over here is, great at solving software problems. And we need to do skills-based routing to be able to interact with those systems. Maybe one of those systems is ITSM. You're probably talking to us today because we've helped you out with ITSM in the past, and that's great. That's kind of the primary use case that we're talking to customers about. But maybe there's other stuff. Maybe there's customer service. You have a CRM application. They're using Salesforce, or they're using Dynamics, or anything else on the back end. There's lots of different systems that we have out there that you may need to interact with, and not all of them necessarily. Oh, that's not an agent. That's just another. Maybe this is Dynamics down here. Dynamics. It's a different kind of system that we're going to interact with. Maybe that's the payroll system, and they're calling in for HR related questions. Maybe it's a facilities problem, and this is the facilities management system, and they're calling about a broken street light, or a toilet that's not working. So we can bring all of it into kind of one central location, understand what they're trying to do, and then route it out to the final destination. So the whole concept behind this is omnichannel, bringing the channels together and then not having them feel independent, where when I text message in, it feels like a completely different interaction than when I call in. I want to make it so that it feels to the end user that they're all kind of part of the same system, and I'm there handling your request no matter what. So this is what BrightPattern does. This is kind of the theory behind it. What I want to do now is walk you through some use cases. So I'm going to play the part of the end user, and Brian Hawson is going to play the part of the analyst. And we're going to call through and interact with the system many different times. We're going to do it, over and over again, because you can kind of see the different scenarios. And you're going to see the different options that we have at our disposal. So you're going to see us do it many different times with different scenarios. And again, we've programmed it mostly just to kind of give you ideas on how you're going to set this up. It is incredibly configurable. You're going to adapt it to your individual organization when we help you install it. So kind of keep that in mind. Don't take what we're doing here as, oh, well, that's the only way that it works. I'll show you a little bit of the back end later on how you could customize this and configure it. It's not something that you're programming. It's something that you're just customizing. So let's kind of walk through that a little bit. So what we're going to do first here, I have a phone. So I'm the end user. I'm going to call in to the service desk. Now, a lot of things are going to happen all at once. So I'm going to break it down now on what's going to happen so you can kind of see what that flow looks like. Now, first of all, we can identify who the user is. So I'm going to match the caller ID based on the phone number that called in, and I'm going to go and do a lookup in my service management system. And I'm going to know who this is. So I'm going to call in. In this example, I'm a user. My name's Alan. So we're going to identify the user. We're going to know potentially who they work for. If I'm having to support multiple entities, are they an employee? Are they a contractor? Are they a customer? I can identify who they are. I can start the logic. In this case, I'm going to say, how can I help you? Conversational IVR is a really cool feature that you don't have to do the number tree anymore, the phone tree, where, press 5 for this, press 7 for that. We're going to throw that out the door. We can do that, but that's kind of an older fashioned technology. We want to do things like asking them what they want. So I am going to say that I'm having a particular problem. Now in our example, let's do that we're having a printer problem. And we're going to identify based on what they say, it's going to go down a decision path based on that. In my example, maybe the facilities department handles toner refills. And so I'm going to ask a question about the toner light. I'm going to say, is your toner light on? Or the system's going to ask that. And then I state whether it is, yes or no. And then it's going to route over to an agent. Now, in our first example, we're going to pretend that no one's available and that it's going to be, we're going to put you on hold. We're going to give you an estimated wait time. Then we're going to give you an option to, to get a call back if necessary. So sorry, that's a lot of things that are happening really quickly in succession there. So I wanted to explain what happens when we call in there. So let's go through and make that call. We're going to call into Virtrillo. Virtrillo is just our fake company that we use to show off what this looks like. So we're going to announce, thank you for calling Virtrillo and kind of go from there. So let's call in.
Thank you for calling for Trillo. Alan, how can I help you today?
I can't print.
I see you're having a printer issue. Is the toner light on?
Nope.
Okay. I'm going to get someone in the IT department to help you. Please hold. Your estimated wait time is 0 minutes, 40 seconds. If you would like us to call you back when it's your turn, press 1.
So I for sure want that. I don't want to wait on hold. So I'm going to press 1.
Thank you.
It's
We will
gonna-
call you back at
It's going to read out the phone number. I won't bore you with that. But, again, we identified who you were. We asked for what your problem was. We made a decision based on the toner logic, and then we routed over to a technician. Now, our technician was not available. He was out to lunch or whatever. In our example, we only have one technician. And so what's going to happen, I'll show you over here at our agent desk, we have a not ready state. He's going to switch over and turn ready. What's going to happen there is it's actually going to call me. It's actually going to reach out and say that I am now available, and it's going to try and find that user. And if that user actually answers, it's going to connect the call, and we're going to go through our troubleshooting of the printer. So Brian's going to change from a not ready state to a ready state.
Okay, so you'll also notice that Service Manager is here going through, and it's got a quick view of Alan's stuff already there. But so we'll go to ready.
Okay, so let's call back in really quick.
Thank you for calling for Trillo. Alan, how can I help you today?
I can't print.
I see you're having a printer issue. Is the toner light on?
Nope.
Okay. I'm going to get someone in the IT department to help you. Please hold.
So now what's going to happen is it's going to ring on the desk of the analyst. You can see right there, he's going to accept it. And now the troubleshooting process can start. Now, a couple of cool things happened there as well. We did a screen pop. So in this case, we're using Avanti Service Manager. Service Manager knew who I was, and it actually went and opened up an incident. You can see that it has my contact information there. It even passed over my information to the summary field. So it knows what the problem was, and it can translate that over. Now, we go through and we do our work, and we troubleshoot, and we solve the problem, we don't solve the problem, whatever. And then we can do cool things like actually put that information inside of the incident. We could transcribe our entire phone call, the entire time that we were talking, and we could have that as like a notes field in the incident if we wanted to.
Can also transcribe a voicemail. If somebody leaves a voicemail, rather than just attaching that voicemail, it can actually go out, transcribe that voicemail, and put that in.
Yeah. So let's do this again. Let's call back one more time, except Brian's going to change an incident really quick. So right now, I didn't have any open incidents. We're going to go and open that incident that I had previously. I have it open in that tab up at the top. And we're going to say, no, the Chrome tab at the very, very top. Sorry. We're going to say that this user now has an active incident. Let's go back and call in when we have an active incident. You're going to see, again, we're going to notify, or we're going to identify who you are, look up in the service management system, see that you have an active incident, find who the agent is, check the agent's status, and then route the call or ask to go to a voicemail. So again, a lot of things are happening there really quick, but notice that now I have an open incident and we're checking against that on this next call.
Thank you for calling for Trillo. Alan, I see you have an open issue. Are you calling about that?
Yes.
I see you were working with David. Let me get you over to them.
So now it's just going to ring on David's desk. But you saw what happened was we knew you had an open incident. We looked at the status of it. We tried to track down that person. Now, again, you get to control that logic. Maybe you don't want to go to the same person. Maybe you want it only to go to voicemail or find someone else or skills-based. Again, all of that is completely within your control in how that interaction is going to happen. So, but getting back to the same person, that's kind of a really cool option to pick it up where we potentially left off. Okay, so that's some cool examples we had on the calling in via voice. Let's talk about some of the other interaction types that we have, specifically around things like chat. So we break it down into generally speaking, two different kinds of interaction, and that's voice interactions and that's chat interactions. Now, in reality, on the back end, we do a lot of cool tricks. We're actually going to take the voice. We're going to use a natural language processing. You get to use whatever you want. In our examples, we're using Watson. Watson is, that thing that you saw on Jeopardy, beat Ken Jennings. It's really good at processing human voice and actually converting it over into text. So we take that text then and run it through the AI logic and the bot logic to be able to provide a lot of these responses. So that's kind of the process flow. But you're going to see things a little bit differently when we're interacting via a text only. But we can offer a lot of the same kinds of services. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and chat. In this case, I just have a public-facing website. There's nothing special about this, just a public-facing website. We're going to pretend that I'm an external employee, and I don't know who you are. In this case, I don't know your caller ID. If this was like embedded into an intranet page, I could have passed over your credentials or who your email address was or something like that. In this example, I'm just going to pretend I have no idea who this person is, so we need to ask for identification. So when we open up that chat, it's going to come back and say, what's your phone number? Maybe the phone number is our unique identifier. Maybe it's email, whatever. You can have whatever you like. I'm going to put in my number here because I'll never remember Alan's. So I'm going to put in my number there. It's going to find out who I am. And again, that same logic can kick in. It can say, do you have an open incident? Who are you? Are you an employee? All that logic on the background is going there. So I'm going to say something like, my ERP is slow. My ERP is slow. Now what's going to happen is we're going to check for a major incident or a problem with the business service called ERP. We identified ERP. Now, what's cool is that fuzzy logic. It could have said Oracle or ERP or JD Edwards or whatever that software is. We can identify it with multiple different things. We're not looking for just one word and then calling it good. We can be much more flexible than that. So I'm going to say my ERP is slow. I created an artificial delay here that we're checking the servers. In reality, we can check for a problem within, half a second or so. And look what it did. It came back and told me that there's a problem. And it's taking that description and it's advertising that description saying, are you having this same problem? Maybe in this case, yes, you're right. I'm having ERP problems, and it says that it's slow. Notice what happened there. It says, we're going to add you to that incident. We're going to create an incident for you. We're going to link that instance to the master incident. When that gets closed, you're going to get notified of that happening. So we were able to deflect that interaction. We never had to get a human involved for part of that because we were having an outage. Now that outage could have been advertised over voice as well. I could have said ERP is slow, and we would have made that same kind of announcement. So know that it doesn't just have to be on the text thread. It can be on a voice thread as well. Let's go through that interaction again, and let's pretend we don't have that problem. Again, we're just using different scenarios here to show you the power of the tool. I'm going to say my ERP is slow, and it's going to go and check, and it's going to find that same problem because I haven't gone and resolved it. And it's going to say, are you having this particular problem? And are you in a ready state?
I am in a ready state.
So an agent's on the other side. I'm going to say, no, I'm not having that problem. The problem I'm having is something else. So what's going to happen here is we're going to get connected to an agent. And now, instead of having a phone call ring in, it was a chat session that came across. So now I'm chatting with the agent. What's great about this is you can see that we understood the context of where we came from. You see the interaction with the bot, and you just took over, and David can see that. Now, I'm going to pretend I'm like a regular end user, and it's not actually my ERP is not working. I'm going to say that I can't print. Back to kind of that original problem that we have here.
Now, you'll notice, based upon that chat that's going through, that I can't print is going to show through the same information coming back on this as we were able to see from the phone and also from the text message, whatever it happens to be. That AI that sits behind this is going to give me a suggestion to go back and ask Alan with along these lines. So now I'm asking, hey, is your toner maintenance light currently on? What does that look like?
Yeah, and what's cool about that is the bot never left the conversation. A human's now involved, but it was a seamless transition over to a human, and the bot stayed there and can provide suggestions. Now, this is where you need to set your expectations. The bot is not going to know all of the answers. You need to create these answers and these logic. So I don't want to sugarcoat it that says, oh, you buy this software, it's going to take care of 40% of your problems without a human having to fix it. That's not the case. We need to spend time identifying common problems. What is our top 10 issues? How could we ask users about them? What are common secondary questions that we ask? We need to bring that logic to the table and put it inside of the system. But we're not programming it. It's a lot of just configuration. We just go into BrightPattern and whatever our logic on the back end, like Watson, and it's mostly just point and click or typing in different text and things like that. So it's not incredibly difficult to configure, but it is something that we are going to go and configure. In this chat session, we have a couple of cool things. I could elevate this up to a voice call. Maybe we've reached the point where text is not good enough and I want to make a phone call. Or over here on David's desk, you can see that we have a co-browsing button as well. Co-browsing is a fancy way to look at their screen, but it's only their web browser. It's not remote control. Remote control takes kind of a lot of effort and energy, whereas just looking at their web browser is called co-browsing, and it's just a little piece of JavaScript and can get turned on in just a couple of minutes. The user just presses yes to that. So that's a pretty easy way to escalate the support and look at their machine even if it's not like a company-owned machine or something like that. Okay, so those are the interactions that we've gone through so far. Let's close out of that and let's jump over here. I want to jump back on the phone and have that same kind of interaction, but instead of doing it via a chat on the computer or via phone, we can do it via instant messaging, or sorry, not instant messaging, SMS, so text messaging. So here I'm going to go and take the phone number of the, oh, whoops, my broadcasting has stopped. Give me a second to turn that back on. Okay, here we go. So all I did was I texted help to that same phone number that I called into. So remember Omnichannel? It's all the same system, same phone number that I called into. Identified me again as Alan, how can I help? I'm going to say, maybe I'm pretending that I have a problem with my POS terminals. I'm in a retail example. I can't process transactions. So I'm going to say POS is down. So we're going to identify, based on the wording there, that you complain about the business service POS, point of sale. And if there's a problem with that, I wanted to ask a secondary question. Are all of your terminals affected, or is it just one? I could say all of my terminals in one example. Hey, that's a big deal in my organization. If you cannot process transactions, I've created a severity 1 incident. I've notified the regional manager. I could have fired off a workflow inside of Service Manager, created any kind of logic that I want to. And it tells me, something about processing manual transactions or something like that. Let's go through that same interaction, again. And we could say that we have, maybe only problems with one of them. So again, I'm going to say that the POS is down. Again, I could have said terminal or POS or micros or something like that. We don't have to be incredibly precise with the logic behind that, with exactly what the particular problem is. So in this example, I'm going to say that only one of the terminals is down. Maybe if only one of my terminals is down, I want to help you, but I don't know if right now is a good time. So I ask a question like, hey, do you want help right now? Or do I want help in 15 minutes? So maybe if I want to say later, I understand what that means. Oh, I'm going to add you to the call list. I'm going to have a technician call you. I'm still going to open up an incident. And now you're on the technician's call list in 15 minutes. So that's just some examples of what we can do to interact. Again, the text message, the chat, the voice, they all follow the same pattern. So I could have just as easily opened up Facebook or Twitter. It would have interacted in the same way, or WhatsApp or WeChat. There's a whole pile of social media connectors that we have there as well. They all work in just the same way. They connect to the same backend system in that Omnichannel. So next, I want to talk a little bit about what it looks like from an administrative perspective. So let's log in here as Mary, who's the help desk supervisor. You can see some things that we have here around different stats. I don't have a very big team here. I've just got David Miller, what his stats are, number of calls, number of times he's answered it, occupancy, different statuses and so forth. So this is how I would see the status of my team. And then if I look at the back end, I can look at different interaction records. So being able to understand how these interactions went, and how we can improve them is, a big part of quality management. So here's all the different interactions that we've had, the different places that they came from, what was their phone number when they called in. We do cool things like we give you the ability to record the audio and potentially even record the screen sharing. So, or not even just the screen sharing, record the agent's desktop. If you want to see what they're clicking on as they're working these incidents, we have the ability to do that. Totally within your control. You can turn it on or off however you want to. But if I wanted to play the audio recording, I could go click on it right here and play it down here at the bottom. We could do evaluations where we're saying, I'm an evaluator. I'm saying, hey, you should have said this or you should have said that, giving you quality ratings, things like that. See what the analyst was, what the user was, all that different information there. So all of that exists on the back end from a quality of service perspective to be able to rate how these interactions are going and have a great log of kind of what happened. But you heard about some of those other interactions that we could say, let's transcribe it and let's shove it inside the incident. Maybe I don't want to have to go to another system to get that information. Great, that transcription agent has the ability to pull that across and then bring it down and put it inside of another system.
There's also the concept of sediment analysis, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's great. I don't think I have it turned on any of these right here, but we're going to come back and give a kind of smiley face, frowny face if we believe that the interaction is going good or bad. Let's see if any of these have sentiment analysis turned on. I bet if we keep scrolling, we'll get to the point that I had that enabled. But what that does is if they're saying words that are good, then that means we're probably going to be having a good interaction, a happy interaction. So we'll have a smiley face here. If we are hearing a lot of negative words, it doesn't work, it can't, expletives, that we're probably going to have a bad interaction. Now, it's not perfect, but it can give you a gut feeling on good or bad. How was his interaction? And then again, something we can pass over. Maybe that's something you need for extra review. Hey, this was a bad interaction. Maybe it's worth an extra follow-up from a supervisor or something like that. So.
Yeah, and maybe it's just bad because the person was unhappy with the technology. It wasn't the desktop technician or whatever that was having a bad scenario. But
yeah, that kind of stuff is never going to be perfect. That's why having the record exists. Let's go look at it. Let's look at the chat sessions. Let's look at the calls to be able to prove that. Okay, so that was a quick run through of how the technology works. There's lots of little pieces to the puzzle and nuance, but we just wanted to give everyone an incredibly high-level overview of how it works. To recap, it can connect to lots of different service management or even just customer service systems or, even other things, payroll, HR, anything. Anything that has an API. If it's got a web API, we can plug into it. We've got some really cool examples we talked about things like COVID distribution, vaccine distribution, and we have a customer that's a DMV that it had to do with interacting with customers that way. So lots of different systems on the back end is what you can plug into. So we're going to pause here for a second and see if any questions came across.
Yeah, well, but before we do the questions, any interactions that we're having between an employee and a customer or between a support employee and an employee in the organization, this can help with a lot of those kind of things because, obviously the face-to-face interactions is different, but anytime we're having a technology interaction, phone, text, any of that kind of stuff, BrightPattern can help us.
Yeah, if we go to management and say, we want to improve the quality of how we interact with our users, there's usually a good buy-off on that. Far too many times we're the Department of No, and we're headed up by the CI No. So if we say, hey, we want to invest in improving our customer interaction, we want them to feel like we're paying better attention to them, most of the time, management is going to buy off on something like that. So we found some good success there. So
okay, so we do have some questions.
Great.
Let me go read some of these questions to you. First, is this on-premise or in the cloud?
So it's a cloud-based system. BrightPattern exists in the cloud. But we can integrate with your system. We can port your phone numbers up there so it rings directly. And what's great about that is it gives us some great flexibility. You can have agents anywhere. You can easily upgrade it or add licenses or add agents to the system. So it is a cloud-based system.
Okay. Next is, do I have to replace my current phone system, like my whole phone system? Or does this integrate with my phone system?
Right. Good question. No, it integrates with. It technically lives in a vacuum where you could have, like in our example here, we don't have any real phones. I've got one real phone, we didn't even call in on it, but it can live in a vacuum if you want to. If you have your own separate kind of universe, no problem. but it can also plug into your system. So if you've got an on-premise or cloud-based phone system, we can just be your extension. Maybe they call extension 5000 for the help desk. Great. That number just forwards up to our number, and then we receive it that way. So you can absolutely integrate with an existing system you have today. We don't go and replace your phones. The agent that's doing the support, yes, they're going to be using a BrightPattern device most of the time to do their troubleshooting, but we're not going to go replace the accounting department calling the facilities department. Your existing phone system will almost certainly still stay in place.
So can they use their existing devices, cell phone, desk phone, or do they have to use the BrightPattern soft phone?
Yeah, all of the above. You saw it kind of in that soft phone. It's just a plug-in into a browser. So I don't care where you're at, if you're home, you're at work, whatever. It just your web browser is now your telephone, and we ring it right there. But there's no problem to change that. I can have it ring your cell phone, either directly ringing your cell phone, or we even have just now a brand new BrightPattern app that will ring, or even a hard phone. Maybe you've got a hard phone on your desk, no problem. We can route it to that hard phone. So all of those options are on the table for you from a customization perspective.
Okay. Does it integrate with Microsoft Teams? Is that one of the channels?
Yes. The thing with Teams is there's kind of a two-part integration. The first part that is done is agent-to-agent communication. So if I'm interacting with an end user and I need to talk to, maybe there's a Teams chat that focuses on resolving a particular problem, I can interact through BrightPattern that way. The direct interaction with the end user, where the end user interacts with me on Teams, like that chat functionality, that's slated to be released later this year. So we're very excited for that.
Okay. Last question that I have. So if anyone has any other questions, please send them to us. But last one is Watson included with BrightPattern? Is that a separate thing? How does the AI bot work?
Yeah, good question. So you saw me, well, you didn't actually see the back end of it. We only talked about the front end of it. But BrightPattern focuses on the Omnichannel, the natural language processing, and the actual bot interaction. We let you use whatever you want. So popular ones are Watson, Amazon has some, Google has some. I prefer Watson. It's very easy to set up. It's very easy to use. And from a price perspective, it's pennies on the dollar. I mean, Watson is priced for companies that are having 500,000 users interacting with them every single day. You will pay Watson pennies on the dollar compared to how much you're paying for service management or for BrightPattern. So yes, it is an additional cost, but it is incredibly cheap. The starting bundles are 10,000 user interactions. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Even just to get into the very cheapest price tier. Below that, there's even free bundles that you may not even hit that. So
yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any more questions?
Looks like that's all the questions I'm seeing. So.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. This was meant to just be a very brief overview. What I would recommend, if we've sparked any interest or you like kind of what you see, hit up your NCSI salesperson and let's do a one-on-one demo. Let's talk about your use cases. Let's customize it. We've even done this for customers where we can program the logic to answer some of your more common use case questions. Let's have a one-on-one version of this to show you more about the platform and exactly how it works. So if that's desirable, like I said, just hit up your NCSI salesperson. So.
Okay.
I'd like to thank Mr. Hoskins for coming and playing along and playing our agent. So thank you very much. Thank you everyone for attending. We're going to record this and put it on our YouTube channel. If you want to share it with anyone else inside your organization, just hit our YouTube channel, as well as we've got videos out there for a lot of the other products that we represent as well. So thank you everyone for attending. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye.